Hi everyone, I thought I would sit down and have a chat with you today. I wanted to film this video because it is Disability Pride Month in July and I have a few things planned for that. This was not actually one of them. This is just something that I felt like filming today, so that's what I'm doing. I wanted to do a fun wig changing reel for Instagram, but let's face it, it's been far too hot for that. And I also want to do an updated book recommendation video for books that focus on disability and disfigurement, because it's been a while since I did one of those videos, and especially given that it was Disability Readathon in April, I have loads of books to talk to you about, so I will film that either this month or next month. But a week ago or the week before, Elizabeth McNeil very kindly included my book, The Girl Aquarium, in her top 10 books about circuses in The Guardian, and therefore I have been thinking a little bit more about that book of mine. Plus, I have been doing some work for National Poetry Day this week, which isn't till October, but you know, forward planning. And I just thought, I have never done a book type event, I think, for any of my books on this channel. Whenever a new book of mine comes out, if you're new, hello, I'm an author. I do obviously in-person events and I do some online events, but those tend to be on Instagram or on other people's channels and platforms. I've never filmed a book type event, and I'm using the word event here very loosely, and I just thought that might be quite nice. So generally when I do a book event in real life, remember those, for the Girl Aquarium, what I'll do is I will talk a little bit about the creation process of the book, talk about disability and disfigurement, circuses, the history of the freak show, and read poems in between and talk about my personal relationship with the poems. And it's fun, and it's been a long time, hasn't it, since we've had in-person events, and it's still going to be a long time for me until I do another one. So I thought I would film one and put it up on this channel, and if that sounds like your jam, if you would like to listen to me talk about disability and the freak show and poetry, then grab a cup of tea and let's do it. So this is my collection, The Girl Aquarium, which was published in 2019 by Blood Axe. It's my debut poetry collection, but was my 8th book because I also write fiction and non-fiction and children's books. And the poems in here deal with girlhood and adolescence and changing bodies through adolescence, but also how that intersects with queerness, disability, disfigurement, and mythology. And I don't just mean specific fairy tales, I more mean folklore and superstition that's woven into our society that we don't really even think about. And it is about the othering gaze and how queer people and disabled people are looked at in a very different way, and quite literally in the past were put on display. So it talks about the history of the freak show, but then also just how people are observed in everyday life now. And I think probably there is a larger conversation that I could have with myself about how I'm obsessed with that othering gaze as a queer disabled person. But I also have a YouTube channel and there's a different gaze going on there, I suppose. But maybe that's getting a bit meta for today and we can talk about that another time. I grew up in a small village by the sea in the northeast of England, and I used to have a Geordie accent, which I know you can't hear anymore. And some of the poems in this collection are written in Geordie dialect, just a few, I think about 5 or 6. I should know the specific number, but I have forgotten. So I thought I would start by reading one of you those poems, which are in Geordie and touches on those themes that I just mentioned. So queerness, body, the sea, folklore, and othering. So this is a poem called Netted, which is about 2 girls who are in a relationship and they are caught. Netted. And then the caught were, I shouting like they was radio. Me hair all up in their fists like a cloud. It's long now. Down to my navel, cause then all the black is like a cave, what I can sit in, what I can sing in. With voices hiding in all the corners like I'm radio too. And then the court were, me and Caitlin, we was dancing our way fairgrounds in our eyes, blazing out like dancing lions, and me stomach a stinking jellyfish, all zip-zapping around. And then the court were, when we was whispering, and their fingers got me mouth, the hiccups of the ocean all dripping down our blouse, and the sounds was ganning manic like we was trapped underground. And then the court were said we was danger, said our queer souls was a well, looking at us like we're fishes what swam but should have drowned, yet I think me soul's a lighthouse, and I cling to Caitlin's arm, our voices singing from all the corners like was mermaids in the dark. If you would like the text of these poems as I'm reading them, because I know I like to see the text of a poem when I'm reading, if you don't already have the captions turned on, then the text of the poem can be found there. If you followed my channel for a while, then you will know that the history of fairy tales is a subject that I am just fascinated by, and I have a whole series of videos on that, which I'll link in the description box down below. I think at their core, fairy tales really are about morality and bodies, and if you examine what fairy tales are saying about those things, it kind of holds up a mirror to society and makes us question what we value and who we value and why. I remember finding out that Petrus Gonsalves was the inspiration for, or thought to be the inspiration for, Beauty and the Beast, which I have a whole video about and I'll link down below. And there are all of these instances where fairy tales and disability have met historically. So for instance, in the Victorian freak show, people like P.T. Barnum would put disabled people on display and give them animal names like the lion man or the tiger woman as, in inverted commas, proof of evolution, saying this person is part human and part animal, creating this fable-like existence for disabled people whilst obviously very much exploiting them. And whilst that imagery was mostly very negative, obviously, when it comes to fairy tales and storytelling, you can subvert that. So a lot of the poems in this collection are anthropomorphic and looking at bringing animals and humans together in ways to talk about bodies. There was a belief in Victorian times that if a woman looked at an animal or ate a certain kind of animal when she was pregnant, and that would have an impact on the fetus, and if she had a disabled child, then that might be why. And that was another one of the reasons why people in freak shows were given animal names. So this is a poem about that, which is called The Woman's Private Looking Glass, and also touches on the fact that anyone born with a disability or a disfigurement until the 1880s was medically called a monster. Take the physician's advice. Forget imagination and do not look straight at the moon. Up there, devil girls cradle silver eggs. They slide from roller coaster innards, trickle tales of the greats. Leda, Lilith, Siren, all owl-chested women, and do not peer into the sea. For there, salted tadpoles twist around your organs and turn your baby into stone. It is well known that climbing mountains breeds giants, forest beards and babes tossed into the woods, and it is understood that touching an animal seeps under your skin until every wild child resembles lions and lynx. What do they think of pulling concertina bairns out of red, raw wombs? Inner rooms reserved for the most complicated monsters. Let the gossips build the cage, drag to our city centre stage, let the world come. Let them pay a grand sum to gawp at all our animal children. The tiger-striped lass, the dog-faced lad, the hairy maid at the harpsichord, the horned girl, the Swedish giant, the lobster boy, the lobster girl, the pig-faced lady of Manchester Square, the man of the woods, the Victorian mummy, and isn't it funny how now we morph our fingers into keys? Magpied, glittering, picking locks to skitter out of all our silver boxes. Whether we are more or less bodied than the rule book states, I anticipate us diving into uncharted lakes. Babes, there's no going back now. Smash this circus to the ground. Howl fiercely at the moon. I'm writing this as someone who has a form of ectodermal dysplasia, which means that I have alopecia, so I wear wigs, which is why you can see some up there. I have ectrodactyly and syndactyly, so that means I have missing fingers, and if I had been born 100 or so years ago, I would have been called the lobster girl. That is the name for people with ectrodactyly in the freak show. So a lot of these poems are about harking back to the freak show, but also are about my personal experience of growing up as someone who is disabled and spending a lot of time in hospital. So some of these poems touch on medical things, but through that folklore lens. And as part of my condition, I am losing my sight. So there's one poem in here which is about that, called Hello Dark. Hello Dark. Look. I said, look. When we grow up, we're not supposed to have things like favourite colours, because apparently there are more important things in life. But what does the colour orange sound like? The funny thing is that I'm reading this to you from a piece of paper. The funny thing is that I quite like the dark. My dark. Choosable dark. See you later dark. No. No, that's enough now. Let's be lighthouses instead. I asked Google what it's like being blind, and it comes up with, what is being blind mean? And I think, well, that's not very good English. And Google says, how do blind people dream? And then strangers start arguing on the internet. People paint their houses with ridiculous names. Mermaid net, flamingo's tear, whispering teal, phantom mist, grandma's sweater. I don't want to paint my house with grandma's sweater. It's loud in here. The shape of words is very important. Here are some of my favourite words. Skeleton, circus, onomatopoeia. Troglobites are creatures that live in the entirely dark parts of caves. One of those is called a phantom cave snail. My doctor blinks. He hands me a leaflet. Once I went to a restaurant where we ate in the dark. All of the waiters were blind and we couldn't see what we were eating. Every so often there was a crash as plates toppled to the floor, and we carried on regardless. The food was nice. You thought you could hear people groping each other on the other side of the room. Sighted people left feeling smug with themselves. What colour is chaos? Scientists still don't know what most of the universe is made of, so perhaps it's okay if I just sit and think here for a while. If I can't see myself, then perhaps that means I can be everywhere and everything. I have a feeling that this is incorrect, but let's go with it. It sounds good. Hello, dark. Please don't let me make a fool of myself. My favourite colour is green. I've spoken on this channel before about the representation of disfigurement and disability in the media, and particularly in films, and how there is this literary tradition where people with disfigurements and disabilities are used as shorthand for villainy. Think of James Bond villains and horror films. And I have made videos about that, which I'll link in the description box down below. But one of the poems in here is about that, and it's called Hero. Noun, man of strength. Synonyms: brave, champion, man of courage, great man, star, lion, favourite, darling. Pull up a seat, an uncomfortable seat. We ask that you focus. Please switch off your mobile phones. In the film with the hero is beautiful. Darling, the beautiful hero is saving the world. In the film with the hero, the villain has scars. The skin-mapped villain is killing for fun. In these films with their heroes, their lions, their stars, the world nurtures itself, darling. The world understands blame. I think, you see, the director explains that there is nothing wrong with the body, with it being used to show, the audience needs to know. We need to tell them. This is a world where we feel at home. Look here, darling. Try not to stare. We watch, they watch, he, she, it watches. I said that there were a couple of medical poems here and how that plays with folklore, and one of the poems in here is about IVF, which I wrote after our first IVF appointment, which is called The Doll Hospital. And there are so many fairy tales out there that deal with trying to have a baby. The snow child is one that just pops into the top of my head, but about crafting a child out of perhaps another kind of material. So I wrote this poem about IVF, but used that idea of molding a child out of clay, and it's called The Doll Hospital. First, they say, you must think of the shape. Hold it. The question-marked spine, the colour of the eyes, and if you look closely, the fox tongue, rabbit heart, barely there grin. We each make half, carved, kneading grey the texture of calf tongue. I lick the edges, fold an envelope ear and listen for wings. Moth or magpie or dragonfly beats. My mother claimed I had changeling feet, dancing in dirt water, pulling a ragged doll through fairy rings when she summoned me home for tea. I cup my palms, little fishling. I wonder if we should roll her hair like starfish, watch it flicker the colour of raspberry plum. We hum, take turns, pirouette her little body so her organs align marbled planets. Hush. How ridiculous that we should be allowed to craft and mould and hope as we coat her in a water glaze, then bake. In the dying light, we rest and wait. Up north, they say, if you cover their limbs in hospital white, you might later dig for victory. So we pull on our shoes and step out into snow. It is a long road. We bury our porcelain children in the flickering woods, our soiled hands tangled in juniper roots, and you hand me a crown fit for an unmarked country. I thought I would end on a happy one, which is one of the oldest poems from the collection and actually was in my pamphlet, The Hungry Ghost Festival. So I think it's from over 10 years ago, and it's called Kitchen. And it's kind of a precursor to Netted. So the first poem that I read to you here, which was about two girls in love who were caught in a relationship that other people had deemed inappropriate. And Kitchen, you can either have it as before Netted, so before they were caught and their relationship fell apart, or perhaps after they were caught and they continued to see each other anyway and defied homophobic society. So this is Kitchen. This one is not in Geordie, and it kind of has a little warm place in my heart, and I really enjoy reading it out, and it just makes me happy, so I hope it makes you happy too. Kitchen. What would you do if I died right now, here? You asked. Your hand still resting on my thigh, your eyes focused on the ceiling, on the splash of curry sauce to the left of the light which doesn't work. We could have been in a field. A wooden spoon dug into my back. I thought it funny. Let's not talk of death, where food is prepared, I said. You turned away, stood up, and opened the fridge. The light shone past you, an outline of you, your feet tapping on the floor. Your mother would be home soon to her yellow and check tea towels and a hand-painted bread bin, and her naked daughter standing like Jesus in front of the refrigerator. I grabbed your foot. Come on, your nipples will freeze and you'll be chronogenically frozen. There was a laugh somewhere under your hair as you toppled backwards onto the floor and cupped my face. So, if I died right here, now, you said, you'd freeze me. Your eyes were grey, round. You were swimming and I didn't know what you wanted me to do. I'd keep you, I said. I'd keep you right here. Dead, you grinned, where food is prepared. Well, then I'd eat you, I said. And you stared so deep, I drowned in a kitchen that wasn't there. I'd swallow down all the evidence of you. I grabbed your hand. We heard a key turn in a front door somewhere by the shore. I'd like that, you said, and then kissed me. I'm going to leave it here because my battery is flashing, but thank you for joining me while I talk about poetry and disfigurement and disability and circus and the freak show and girlhood. If you would like to purchase a copy of the Girl Aquarium, you can do so at any bookshop or online. I'll leave links in the description box down below, and you can find it at your library as well. I hope that you are having a good week, and I will speak to you all very soon. I'm sending lots of love. Bye.